The trading station orbited the gas giant Kepler 442b like a metal flower blooming in the darkness of space. Ships from dozens of species docked daily, their hulls gleaming under the artificial lights that never dimmed. The main plaza buzzed with activity as merchants hawked exotic goods and travelers shared stories from distant worlds. Marcus Chen walked through the crowded marketplace, his small hand clasped tightly in his father's grip. At 8 years old, everything seemed massive to him. The towering Centauri with their crystalline skin caught the light like living diamonds. The snake-like Seth merchants hissed softly as they negotiated prices for rare spices. Even the short, stocky Dwarren engineers seemed giant compared to Marcus. "Stay close, son," David Chen whispered, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much of the galaxy's darker side. As a human diplomat, he knew their species was still viewed as newcomers, barely tolerated by the older civilizations that dominated galactic politics. The Galactic Council had only granted humanity limited membership 3 years ago, and that came with strict conditions. Humans could trade in designated zones, travel on approved routes, and settle only on worlds the Council deemed suitable. Most aliens saw them as primitive upstarts who had stumbled into space travel too early. Marcus didn't understand the politics, but he felt the stares. The way some aliens looked at him and his father made his stomach twist. It was the same look the bigger kids at the space station school gave him before they pushed him around. "Dad, why don't they like us?" Marcus asked, tugging on his father's sleeve. David paused, kneeling to meet his son's eyes. "It's complicated, Marcus. Some people fear what they don't understand. Humans are different from most species out here. We're young, we're aggressive, and we don't follow all their old rules. But we're not bad, right?" "No, son. We're not bad. We're just human." A commotion near the central fountain drew their attention. A crowd had gathered around two figures arguing loudly. David recognized the uniform immediately. Hegemony Peacekeepers, the military force that maintained order throughout Council space. The soldier was a Krillian, standing nearly 9 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian. His name tag read, Enforcer Zektar. Across from him cowered a young Centauri merchant, no more than 16 by human standards. His crystalline features cracked with stress fractures. The tax rate increased this cycle. "Worm!" Zektar's voice boomed across the plaza. "Your species has no right to question council decisions." "Please, honored enforcer," the Centauri boy pleaded. "My family saved for 3 years to open this stall. We cannot afford the new rates. Surely there is some arrangement." The crack of the Krillian's hand across the boy's face echoed through the suddenly quiet marketplace. The young Centauri crashed into his display, sending delicate glass sculptures shattering across the floor. "There is no arrangement for inferior species," Zektar snarled. "Pay or be removed." David felt Marcus tense beside him. The boy's hands were clenched into small fists, his face flushed with anger that seemed too mature for his young features. "Dad, he can't do that," Marcus whispered fiercely. "That's not right." "Marcus, no. Stay here." David recognized the look in his son's eyes, the same stubborn determination that had gotten the boy into trouble more times than he could count. But Marcus was already moving. The 8-year-old pushed through the crowd with surprising determination. Adults twice his size stepped aside, too shocked by his boldness to stop him. He reached the Krillian enforcer just as Zektar raised his hand to strike the Centauri boy again. "Hey!" Marcus shouted, his young voice cutting through the tension. "Leave him alone!" The plaza fell silent. Every eye turned to the small human child standing defiantly before the massive alien soldier. Zektar slowly turned, his 4 eyes focusing on Marcus with predatory interest. "A human spawn," he hissed, amusement creeping into his voice. "How amusing. Tell me, little meat, do you know what happens to species that interfere with hegemony business?" Marcus didn't answer. He positioned himself between the enforcer and the injured Centauri boy, his small frame trembling but his feet planted firmly. David pushed through the crowd, panic rising in his chest. He had seen what happened when humans crossed the hegemony. Entire colonies had been relocated for lesser offenses. "Marcus, get back here now," he called out, but his son didn't move. Zektar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The human cub has courage, I will give it that. Perhaps I should teach it some manners." The Krillian's massive foot drew back, aimed directly at Marcus's small body. Time seemed to slow as the kick began its arc toward the defenseless child. David screamed his son's name, knowing he was too far away to help. But something strange happened in that moment. As Zektar's foot approached, Marcus didn't flinch or try to dodge. Instead, his eyes seemed to focus with impossible intensity. The trembling stopped. His small hands moved with sudden, precise purpose. The kick connected, but not where Zektar intended. Marcus had somehow shifted at the last possible second, catching the Krillian's ankle with both hands. What should have been a devastating blow that sent the boy flying became something else entirely. There was a sound like thunder, a crack that reverberated through the station's hull. The massive enforcer's leg twisted in an impossible direction, and Zektar's scream of pain and shock filled the air. But that wasn't the end. Marcus, still holding the alien's ankle, used the Krillian's own momentum against him. With a movement that seemed to defy physics, the 8-year-old boy somehow redirected 9 feet and 400 pounds of angry alien soldier. Zektar's body spun through the air like a broken doll. His head struck the edge of the fountain with a wet, final crack. The enforcer's body hit the ground and didn't move again. Marcus stood over the fallen Krillian, breathing hard but steady on his feet. Around the plaza, hundreds of aliens stared in complete silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. A human child, barely tall enough to reach most species' waists, had just killed a hegemony enforcer with his bare hands. David reached his son first, dropping to his knees beside the boy. "Marcus, how did you?" But Marcus just looked up at his father with those same innocent 8-year-old eyes, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. "He was hurting someone." "Dad, that's not right." In the distance, alarms began to sound. The security lockdown sirens wailed through the trading station as emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the facility. Red warning lights bathed the plaza in an ominous glow, while automated voices announced the containment protocol in 17 different languages. David Chen grabbed his son's shoulders, his mind racing. In 30 seconds, Marcus had transformed from a normal 8-year-old boy into the most wanted fugitive in this sector of space. Killing a hegemony enforcer was considered an act of war, punishable by the complete destruction of the perpetrator's homeworld. "We have to move, now," David whispered urgently, but Marcus seemed frozen in place, staring down at Zektar's motionless form. "Dad, I didn't mean to kill him," the boy said softly. "I just wanted him to stop." Around them, the crowd began to disperse as more alarms joined the cacophony. But not everyone was running away. David noticed several aliens moving closer, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. A group of hegemony sympathizers had formed near the main corridor, blocking the most obvious escape route. Their leader, a tall Vorthan with scarred blue skin, pointed directly at Marcus with one of his 6 arms. "There," he called out to someone using a communication device. "The human child. Sector 7, main plaza." David's diplomatic training kicked in. He needed allies, and he needed them fast. The Centauri boy Marcus had protected was still on the ground, but conscious now, his crystalline features reflecting the red emergency lights. "Can you walk?" David asked, helping the young alien to his feet. The boy nodded shakily. "Yes, honored human. Your offspring. He saved my life. My name is Thyssera." "Then help us get out of here," David said. "Because they're going to blame Marcus for this, and when the hegemony responds, it won't just be him they come for." Thyssera's crystal skin flickered with understanding. The boy might be young, but he understood galactic politics well enough to know that an incident like this could escalate into something much worse. "This way," the Centauri whispered, leading them toward a maintenance corridor hidden behind his merchant stall. "My family has trading agreements throughout this sector. We know the hidden paths." As they moved, more aliens began to take notice, but strangely, not all of them seemed hostile. A group of Dwaran miners stepped aside respectfully as they passed, one of them actually nodding approval at Marcus. "That was well done, young human," the miner rumbled in accented standard. "Zektar was a bully and a coward. Many of us have suffered under his boot." David felt a spark of hope. Maybe they weren't completely alone in this, but his optimism was short-lived. Heavy footsteps echoed from the main corridors as hegemony reinforcements arrived on the station. David could hear the distinctive clank of combat armor and the electronic whine of charging weapons. "Attention, all biological units," a mechanical voice announced over the station's communication system. This facility is now under martial law. The human terrorists responsible for the murder of Enforcer Zektar will surrender immediately, or this station will be cleansed of all human presence. Terror shot through David's chest. There were nearly 300 human civilians on this station, traders, diplomats, families just trying to make a living in the galaxy. They would all die because of what happened here. Marcus must have understood the implications too, because he stopped walking and turned to face his father. "Dad, I have to turn myself in. I can't let other people get hurt because of me." "Absolutely not," David said firmly. "Marcus, you're 8 years old." "You can't, sir," Thesera interrupted softly. "Perhaps the young one is right. If he surrenders, the hegemony might show mercy to the others." David almost laughed at the alien boy's naivety. The hegemony didn't show mercy, especially not to species they considered inferior. They would execute Marcus publicly and then find excuses to relocate every human in the sector. "No," he said. "We find another way." They reached the maintenance tunnel just as the sound of marching feet grew closer. Thesera triggered a hidden panel, revealing a narrow service corridor that led toward the station's docking bays. "The passage connects to Bay 94, the Centauri explained. "My cousin's ship is docked there. She might help us." As they crawled through the cramped tunnel, David tried to process what he had witnessed. Marcus had moved like a trained fighter, not a child. The speed, the precision, the way he had redirected that massive alien's momentum, it should have been impossible. "Marcus," he whispered as they navigated through the darkness, "where did you learn to do that?" The boy was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, Dad. When I saw him hurting Thesera, something inside me just knew what to do, like I'd done it a million times before." That explanation made David's blood run cold. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for their adaptability and their capacity for violence. But this was something else entirely. This was like Marcus had accessed some kind of genetic memory, some instinctive knowledge that shouldn't exist. They emerged from the tunnel into a secondary corridor near the docking bays. The area was less monitored, designed for cargo movement rather than passenger traffic. But even here they could hear the sounds of the search growing closer. Thesera led them to Bay 94, where a sleek Centauri merchant vessel waited. The ship was beautiful, its crystalline hull reflecting light like a prism, but David barely noticed its aesthetics. His entire focus was on getting his son to safety. A female Centauri emerged from the ship's airlock, her features similar to Thesera but more mature, more weathered. She took one look at the group and immediately understood the situation. "Cousin," Thesera said quickly in Standard, "this human child saved my life. The hegemony hunts them now." The female Centauri studied Marcus with intense curiosity. "This small one killed Enforcer Zektar? Interesting. I'm Captain Veltara. My ship can take you to the Outer Rim, but the journey will be dangerous." "Anywhere is safer than here," David said. But before they could board, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor behind them. A full squad of hegemony soldiers appeared, their weapons already charged and ready to fire. "Stand down, humans," their leader commanded. "Surrender the murderer, and the rest of you will be processed according to council law." David stepped protectively in front of his son, even knowing it was useless against their superior firepower. But Marcus gently pushed past his father, facing the soldiers with that same calm expression he'd worn in the plaza. "I'm the one you want," the 8-year-old said clearly. "Let them go," the squad leader laughed. Brave words from a human pup. "But you killed one of ours. That requires a proportional response." He raised his weapon, aiming not at Marcus but at David. "Your father dies first. Then we collect you." Time seemed to slow again, just like it had in the plaza. David saw Marcus's eyes change, saw that impossible focus return to his young face. And then his 8-year-old son moved faster than physics should allow. Marcus moved like lightning contained in a child's body. The energy beam meant for David's chest passed harmlessly through empty air as the 8-year-old somehow closed 30 feet of distance in the span of a heartbeat. The hegemony squad leader's 4 eyes widened in shock as the small human appeared directly in front of him, moving faster than his cybernetic targeting systems could track. Marcus's small fist struck the alien's throat with surgical precision. There was a wet crack and the squad leader collapsed, his weapon clattering across the metal deck. But Marcus wasn't finished. The remaining soldiers tried to adjust their aim, but the boy was already among them, moving like a force of nature. Each strike was precise, efficient, and absolutely lethal. He didn't waste energy on flashy moves or unnecessary violence. Every action served a single purpose: to stop the threat. In 12 seconds, 6 heavily armed hegemony soldiers lay motionless on the dock floor. Marcus stood in the center of the carnage, breathing slightly harder than normal but otherwise showing no signs of exertion. His clothes weren't even wrinkled. David stared at his son in stunned silence. The boy he had raised, the child who still slept with a stuffed animal and cried when he scraped his knee, had just eliminated an entire military squad with his bare hands. "Marcus," David whispered, "what are you?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Marcus turned to face his father, and for a moment, David saw something ancient and terrible in his son's eyes. Then the expression faded and he was just an 8-year-old boy again. "I don't know, Dad, I really don't know." Captain Veltara broke the stunned silence. "We must leave immediately. More soldiers will come, and next time they will bring heavier weapons." She gestured toward her ship with urgent motions, her crystalline features flickering with nervous energy. "My vessel is fast, but it cannot withstand sustained military assault." As they boarded the Centauri ship, Thesara stayed close to Marcus, his young eyes filled with a mixture of fear and admiration. "How did you learn to fight like that?" he asked in wonder. Marcus shook his head. "I didn't learn it. When I see someone in danger, or when someone threatens my family, it's like I remember things I never knew. Like there's someone else inside my head, someone who knows how to fight." David felt a chill run down his spine. During his diplomatic training, he had studied humanity's brief but violent history in galactic politics. The species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia viewed humans as dangerous specifically because of their adaptability and their seemingly innate capacity for warfare. But what if it wasn't innate? What if it was something else entirely? The ship launched from the docking bay just as more hegemony reinforcements arrived. Through the viewport, David could see armored vehicles flooding the station's corridors. Emergency broadcasts were already spreading across the sector, declaring Marcus a terrorist and placing a massive bounty on his capture. "Where can we go?" David asked Captain Veltara as they entered hyperspace. "Every civilized world will turn us over to the hegemony." "Not every world," the Centauri captain replied thoughtfully. "There are places in the outer rim where the hegemony's authority is limited. Independent colonies, free traders, even some worlds that have broken away from council oversight entirely." "Rebels," David said. "Freedom fighters," Veltara corrected. "Many species grow tired of hegemony oppression. Your son may have started something larger than a simple incident on a trading station." During the 3-day journey to the outer rim, David watched his son carefully. Marcus played with Thesara, helped with simple ship maintenance tasks, and acted like any normal child would. But there were moments, brief flashes, when David caught glimpses of that other presence Marcus had described. When the ship's navigation system malfunctioned, Marcus somehow knew exactly which circuits to adjust, despite never having seen Centauri technology before. When they passed a derelict vessel during their journey, Marcus stared at it intensely and announced that it had been attacked by raiders exactly 17 days ago, and that 3 survivors were still alive in the sealed cargo bay. Captain Veltara confirmed his assessment with her sensors. He was completely correct. Most disturbing of all, Marcus had begun speaking in his sleep, but not in any language David recognized. The words were sharp, guttural, aggressive. They sounded like military commands. On the 3rd night, David confronted his son directly. "Marcus, I need you to be honest with me. Do you remember anything from before you were born? Any dreams, any voices in your head?" The boy considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I dream about fighting, but not like the fighting kids do at school. Real fighting, life and death fighting. And in the dreams, I'm not me. I'm older, stronger. I'm leading other people into battle." "Against who?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Against things that want to hurt innocent people. Against bullies and tyrants and monsters who think they can take whatever they want because they're stronger." David felt pieces of a terrible puzzle clicking together in his mind. During his diplomatic studies, he had access to classified files about humanity's early expansion into space. There had been rumors, unconfirmed reports of human children displaying impossible abilities. The Galactic Council had dismissed these as propaganda, but what if they were real? What if humanity was more than just another spacefaring species? They arrived at Kepler Station, a massive independent facility built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The station served as a haven for refugees, free traders, and anyone else seeking to escape hegemony control. Captain Veltara had connections here through her family's extensive trading network, but even in this remote location, news of Marcus's actions had spread. As they docked, David noticed the stares, the whispered conversations, the way other beings looked at his son with a mixture of fear and hope. A delegation was waiting for them at the airlock, representatives from a dozen different species, all of them bearing the marks of hegemony oppression, scars, missing limbs, haunted expressions. Their leader was a female human, middle-aged with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much violence. She stepped forward as they disembarked, studying Marcus with intense curiosity. "You're the boy who killed Zektar," she said simply. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded. "Yes, ma'am. He was hurting people." The woman smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "My name is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, formerly of the Earth Defense Forces. I've been waiting a long time to meet someone like you, Marcus Chen." She gestured to the assembled representatives. "We all have, because what happened on that trading station wasn't an isolated incident. It was the beginning of something the galaxy hasn't seen for a very long time." "Which is?" David asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. "A human awakening," Colonel Mitchell replied, "and the hegemony's worst nightmare." Colonel Mitchell led them through the maze-like corridors of Kepler Station, past workshops where alien refugees rebuilt their lives and children from dozens of species played together without fear. The station hummed with quiet purpose, a stark contrast to the rigid hierarchy David was used to seeing in council-controlled space. "This place is remarkable," David observed as they walked. "How do you maintain order without a central authority?" "Simple," Mitchell replied. "Everyone here has been oppressed by the same enemy. That creates a bond stronger than any government regulation." They entered a secure conference room where several other humans waited. David was surprised to see them. True humans were rare in the Outer Rim, and even rarer were humans who looked like they could challenge hegemony authority. "Marcus," Colonel Mitchell said, "I want you to meet some very special people." The first was Dr. Elena Vasquez, a geneticist who had fled Earth after her research was declared too dangerous by the Galactic Council. The second was Captain James Harrison, a former Earth Defense Forces operative whose entire unit had been disbanded when humanity joined the Council. But it was the third person who caught David's attention immediately. She was young, maybe 16, with the same intense focus in her eyes that he had seen in Marcus during his confrontations. "This is Sarah Kim," Mitchell explained. "She was the first what?" David asked. "The first human child to manifest combat abilities beyond normal parameters," Dr. Vasquez answered. 3 years ago, on a civilian transport, raiders attacked her family's ship. Sarah killed 12 armed pirates with improvised weapons. She was 14 at the time. Sarah stepped forward, studying Marcus with professional interest. "You feel it too, don't you? Like there's someone else in your head? Someone who knows things you never learned?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Sometimes I dream about battles I never fought. And when people are in danger, I just know what to do." "Genetic memory," Dr. Vasquez explained to David. "But not just any memories. Specific combat knowledge, tactical awareness, strategic thinking. It's like humanity has been carrying the accumulated experience of every warrior who ever lived, and now it's beginning to manifest in our children." David felt the room spinning around him. "That's impossible. Genetic memory doesn't work that way." "It does when the species in question has been artificially modified," Colonel Mitchell said grimly. "David, what do you know about humanity's real origins?" "What do you mean?" "We evolved on Earth. We developed spaceflight. We made contact with the Galactic Council. We were created on Earth," Mitchell interrupted, "by a species that disappeared 10,000 years ago. The same species that built the hyperspace jump gates. The same ones who established the technological foundation that the entire galaxy depends on." She activated a holographic display showing star charts and archaeological data. "The Forerunners, as we call them, were facing extinction from something they called the Devourers, a cosmic threat that consumed entire civilizations. Before they disappeared, they created humanity as their ultimate weapon." David stared at the data scrolling past, his diplomatic mind struggling to process the implications. "You're saying humans are artificial? That we're weapons?" "Not weapons," Sarah Kim said softly. "Warriors, protectors. We were designed to fight things that other species couldn't handle. That's why we're so adaptable, why we're so aggressive, why we have such a talent for warfare. Marcus had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. Is that why I can do things other kids can't? Because I'm not really human? You're completely human, Dr. Vasquez assured him. But you're also something more. The genetic modifications the Forerunners made are finally activating. Usually it happens during puberty, but extreme stress can trigger it earlier. How many? David asked. How many children like Marcus and Sarah are out there? We estimate about 1 in 10,000 human children carry the active genetic sequences, Mitchell replied. Most will never manifest abilities because they never face extreme danger. But as the hegemony becomes more oppressive, more children are being triggered. And the Galactic Council knows about this? The Council leadership does. That's why humanity's membership came with so many restrictions. They're terrified of what we might become if we're allowed to develop freely. Through the conference room's viewport, David could see hegemony ships patrolling the edge of the asteroid field. Even here, in supposedly free space, their presence was a constant reminder of the oppression spreading throughout the galaxy. What do you want from us? David asked. We want to train Marcus, Mitchell replied. And we want you to help us contact other families whose children are manifesting abilities. The hegemony is starting to hunt us systematically. They're calling it genetic terrorism and using it as justification for even harsher control measures. Sarah Kim moved to another console, bringing up news feeds from across the galaxy. Look at this. Hegemony forces have relocated 3 human colonies in the past month. They claim the settlements were harboring terrorists, but we know the truth. Those colonies had children like Marcus. The feeds showed the aftermath of the relocations. Burned buildings, empty settlements, no signs of the families who had lived there. David felt sick looking at the images. Where are the people? He asked. Dead, Captain Harrison said bluntly. The hegemony doesn't take prisoners when it comes to what they call genetic threats. They're systematic about it. Identify, isolate, eliminate. Marcus had been studying the displays with that intense focus David was beginning to recognize. How many human colonies are left unprotected? Dozens, Mitchell replied. Maybe hundreds of families who don't even know their children might be targets. Then we have to warn them, Marcus said with quiet determination. We have to help them. That's exactly what we intend to do, Mitchell agreed. But it won't be easy. The hegemony has resources we can't match. They have ships, weapons, an entire military infrastructure. But they don't have us, Sarah Kim said, her young voice carrying an edge of steel. They don't have humans who remember how to fight. David looked around the room at these people who had become refugees in their own galaxy, and he realized that his diplomatic career was over. There would be no negotiating with the hegemony, no peaceful resolution to this conflict. His son's actions on the trading station had forced a choice that couldn't be avoided. What's the plan? He asked. Mitchell smiled grimly. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to fight back. On the viewport, more hegemony ships appeared on the horizon. The hunters were getting closer, and David realized that sanctuary was just another word for temporary safety. But for the first time since watching his son kill that enforcer, David felt something like hope. Because Marcus wasn't alone anymore. There were others like him, and they were organizing. The galaxy was about to learn why the Forerunners had created humanity, and why they should be very, very afraid. 3 months after arriving at Kepler Station, Marcus had changed dramatically. Still 8 years old, still small for his age, but now he moved with the fluid precision of someone who had trained for decades. Under Sarah Kim's guidance, he had learned to control the genetic memories flooding through his consciousness. The training sessions were unlike anything David had ever witnessed. Sarah would attack Marcus with weapons designed to kill, and the boy would respond with techniques that seemed to come from nowhere. Ancient martial arts forms, tactical knowledge, strategic thinking that would challenge experienced generals. The memories aren't just about fighting, Dr. Vasquez explained as they watched Marcus spar with 3 automated training drones simultaneously. They contain accumulated knowledge about leadership, strategy, even engineering and science. The Forerunners didn't just create warriors. They created a species capable of rebuilding civilization after catastrophic destruction. Marcus moved between the drones like water flowing around rocks, each motion perfectly calculated to neutralize threats while conserving energy. He wasn't just fighting the machines, He was studying them, learning their patterns, adapting his techniques in real time. When the session ended, Marcus approached his father with the same bright smile David remembered from before their lives changed forever. The disconnect was jarring, a normal child's enthusiasm wrapped around something ancient and dangerous. "Dad, watch this," Marcus said excitedly, picking up a broken piece of station equipment. His small hands moved over the components with impossible knowledge, rewiring circuits and adjusting connections until the dead machinery hummed back to life. "How did you know how to do that?" David asked. "I remembered it," Marcus replied simply. "There was a Forerunner engineer named Kael'thas who designed similar systems. His memories are really clear." David felt that familiar chill. His son was casually referencing the thoughts of someone who had died 10,000 years ago, as if he had known them personally. Colonel Mitchell appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. "David, we need to talk privately." They moved to a secure communication chamber where Mitchell activated privacy shields that would block any electronic surveillance. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of bad news. "The hegemony has escalated their operations. They've started bombing human settlements from orbit, claiming they're targeting terrorist cells. 5 colonies in the past week." David's blood ran cold. "How many casualties?" "Complete elimination. Men, women, children, elderly, everyone. They're not taking chances anymore." The images Mitchell showed him were devastating. Glassed worlds where thriving human communities had existed days before. The hegemony wasn't just hunting enhanced children anymore. They were attempting systematic genocide. "We have to do something," David said. "We are. But it's not going to be pretty." Mitchell brought up tactical displays showing hegemony fleet positions. "We're planning a series of coordinated strikes against their military installations, hit them hard enough that they have to pull back from their extermination campaign. You're talking about open warfare. We're talking about survival. David, they're not going to stop until every human in the galaxy is dead." Diplomacy failed the moment Marcus killed that enforcer. Through the chamber's reinforced viewport, David could see other refugees going about their daily lives, trying to build something normal in the middle of chaos. Children playing, families sharing meals, elderly beings sharing stories of worlds they would never see again. "How many enhanced humans do we have now?" David asked. 37 confirmed, ranging in age from 12 to 17. Most triggered their abilities when their families were attacked. Marcus is still the youngest by 4 years. "And you want them to fight trained soldiers?" "I want them to save their species," Mitchell corrected. "David, I've seen what these kids can do. Sarah Kim infiltrated a hegemony command post last month and downloaded their complete intelligence database. She was in and out in 20 minutes through security that should have been impossible to breach. She's 16. With the accumulated tactical knowledge of thousands of special operations experts, the enhanced humans don't fight like normal people, David. They fight like legends." Before David could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as automated voices announced an incoming attack. "Hegemony fleet detected. All civilians to emergency shelters. Defense teams to battle stations." Mitchell cursed under her breath. "They found us." They rushed back to the training area where Marcus was helping other children reach the shelters. Sarah Kim and the other enhanced humans were already moving toward the weapons lockers, their young faces set with grim determination. "How many ships?" Sarah asked as she strapped on combat armor designed for her small frame. 12 destroyers and a battlecruiser, Captain Harrison reported from his position at the tactical station. "They're demanding our surrender and threatening to destroy the station if we refuse." "Standard hegemony intimidation," Mitchell said. "But this time they've made a mistake." "What mistake?" David asked. Marcus looked up from helping a younger alien child toward the shelters. "They brought a battlecruiser." The statement sent chills through everyone in the room. David was about to ask what his son meant when Sarah Kim smiled, a predatory expression that looked wrong on such a young face. "Battlecruiser crews follow strict protocols," she explained. "Limited security rotations, predictable patrol patterns, specific vulnerability windows during combat operations. You're not seriously suggesting, David began. Infiltration and sabotage, Marcus finished. Take out their primary weapon systems from the inside while they're focused on attacking the station. Absolutely not, David said firmly. You're children. I won't let you. Dad. Marcus's voice carried a strange authority that made David pause. Look at me. David looked into his son's eyes and saw something that stopped his protests cold. Ancient wisdom, tactical brilliance, and absolute certainty. This wasn't his 8-year-old boy talking anymore. This was something else. Something that had fought wars across the galaxy long before human civilization existed. We know what we're doing, Marcus said quietly. And we're the only chance these people have. Through the viewport, the hegemony fleet grew larger as it approached the station. Their weapons were charging, preparing to deliver an ultimatum that everyone knew would end in slaughter regardless of the station's response. Sarah Kim sealed her helmet and checked her equipment one final time. How many of us do you think it will take to disable a battlecruiser from the inside? Marcus considered the question with unsettling calculation. 3, if we hit the right targets. 4 to be safe. Then let's go save our species, Sarah replied. As the enhanced humans moved toward the docking bays where small infiltration craft waited, David realized he was witnessing something that would change the galaxy forever. The weapons the Forerunners had created were finally awakening, and they were very, very angry. The infiltration craft was barely larger than a shuttle pod, designed to slip past military sensors by mimicking space debris. Inside its cramped confines, Marcus sat with 3 other enhanced humans. Sarah Kim, a 14-year-old named David Martinez whose family had been killed in the recent orbital bombings, and Chen Wei, a 15-year-old girl who had triggered her abilities while escaping a hegemony labor camp. Marcus was by far the smallest, but the others deferred to his tactical assessments without question. The genetic memories flowing through his consciousness included strategies from military leaders who had fought campaigns across multiple star systems. Battlecruiser domination, Sarah reported, reading the data from their passive scanners. Krillian design crew of 800. Primary weapons, secondary defensive systems, and a full marine complement. Standard boarding countermeasures? Marcus asked. Internal sensors, automated defense turrets, and lockdown protocols, plus about 50 Marines in powered armor. Marcus closed his eyes, accessing memories that weren't his own. Fleet Admiral Torethvon had fought the Krillians during the Outer Rim conflicts 2,000 years ago. Admiral Sekhar had studied their ship designs during the intelligence wars. Captain Ysandra had actually served aboard captured Krillian vessels. Engineering section. Deck 7, Marcus said with certainty. If we can reach the power distribution hub, we can cascade the entire weapons grid. The ship will be dead in space. Through how many Marines? David Martinez asked grimly. His genetic memories came from infiltration specialists, commandos who had fought behind enemy lines in conflicts spanning millennia. All of them, if necessary, Chen Wei replied. Her memories were darker. Assassins, saboteurs, soldiers who had done terrible things to protect innocent people. As their craft approached the battlecruiser's hull, Marcus felt the familiar sensation of his consciousness expanding. The genetic memories weren't just tactical knowledge. They were complete personalities. Experienced warriors who had faced impossible odds and survived. He could feel Admiral Torethvon's calm strategic thinking overlaying his 8-year-old awareness. Captain Ysandra's infiltration expertise guided his hands as he prepared his equipment. And underneath it all, something darker and older whispered instructions for violence that would ensure the mission's success. The craft attached to the battlecruiser's hull with barely a vibration. Sarah's tools cut through the armored plating like it was plastic, opening a breach directly into a maintenance corridor. No internal sensors in this section, she whispered as they slipped aboard the enemy ship. We have maybe 10 minutes before they detect the hull breach. They moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, 4 human children navigating a warship designed to intimidate through its massive scale and oppressive architecture. But the genetic memories gave them knowledge of similar vessels, understanding of structural weaknesses, awareness of crew patterns that hadn't changed in thousands of years. When they encountered the first patrol, Marcus felt his consciousness shift entirely. The 2 Krillian Marines never knew what hit them. Marcus moved with impossible speed and precision, striking nerve clusters that would paralyze but not kill. Behind him, the others disabled the aliens' equipment and moved their unconscious bodies out of sight. Non-lethal takedowns, Sarah observed approvingly. The memories are getting more sophisticated. It was true. The genetic personalities inhabiting their minds weren't just warriors. They were soldiers with codes of honor, fighters who understood the difference between necessary violence and cruelty. They reached engineering without triggering any alarms. The power distribution hub was exactly where Admiral Torithvan's memories had predicted, protected by automated defenses that Captain Isandra knew how to bypass. But as Marcus began accessing the ship's primary systems, proximity alarms throughout the battlecruiser began sounding. On the displays around them, they could see Kepler Station's defensive platforms engaging the hegemony fleet. "They're firing on the station," David Martinez said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Through the ship's internal communication system, they could hear orders being transmitted in multiple languages. The hegemony commander was demanding the station's immediate surrender, threatening to destroy it completely if the hidden humans didn't reveal themselves. Marcus's small hands moved across the alien control systems with impossible expertise, but the weapons grid had multiple redundant safeguards. Disabling it completely would take several more minutes. "We need more time," he said. Chen Wei nodded grimly. "I'll create a distraction." Before anyone could stop her, she was moving back toward the ship's central corridors. The memories inhabiting her consciousness belonged to soldiers who had sacrificed themselves to save others, and Marcus could see that same determination in her young face. "Wait," Sarah started to call out, but Chen Wei was already gone. Explosions began echoing through the ship as the 15-year-old girl systematically destroyed secondary systems throughout the vessel. Emergency lights flickered, gravity fluctuated, and confused voices filled the communication channels as the crew struggled to respond to multiple simultaneous crises. Marcus forced himself to focus on the weapons grid. Even as he heard the sounds of combat growing closer to their position, Chen Wei was buying them time with her life, and he couldn't waste her sacrifice. "Almost there," he whispered, his child's voice carrying the calm authority of Admiral Torithvan. 30 more seconds, but 30 seconds was too long. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor as a full squad of Marines approached their position. Sarah and David took defensive positions, but they were outnumbered and trapped. The Marines appeared in the doorway, weapons raised, just as Marcus completed his sabotage of the power grid. "Step away from the controls. Human children," the squad leader commanded. "Your friend has caused enough damage." Through the ship's viewports, Marcus could see Kepler Station's shields failing under the concentrated fire of the hegemony fleet. Thousands of innocent refugees were about to die, and he was the only one who could stop it. He felt the genetic memories surge through his consciousness one final time. Not just tactical knowledge now, but something deeper. The accumulated will of every human who had ever fought to protect the innocent. Every soldier who had stood against overwhelming odds. Every warrior who had chosen duty over safety. Marcus turned to face the Marines, and they stepped back involuntarily. Something in his 8-year-old eyes made hardened soldiers afraid. "You're right," Marcus said quietly. "We've caused enough damage." He pressed the final sequence on the control panel. Every weapon system on the hegemony battlecruiser went dead simultaneously. Emergency power failed throughout the ship. Gravity cut out completely, leaving everyone floating in the sudden darkness. And in that darkness, something that looked like a human child began moving with the skill of 10,000 warriors. The Marines never had a chance. When the emergency lighting restored, Marcus stood alone among the unconscious aliens, breathing hard but uninjured. Sarah and David stared at him with a mixture of awe and concern. "Marcus," Sarah said carefully, "who are you right now?" For a moment, the boy's eyes held depths that belonged to someone infinitely older and more dangerous. Then he blinked, and he was 8 years old again. "I'm just me, Dad's son, but I remember being more." Through the ship's communication system, they could hear confusion and panic as the rest of the hegemony fleet tried to understand why their flagship had gone dark. On their tactical displays, Kepler Station's defenders were pressing their advantage, driving the remaining ships back. The first battle was won. But Marcus knew, with the certainty of genetic memories that spanned millennia, that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn why the Forerunners had created humanity as their final weapon, and why some weapons were too dangerous to ever use safely. 6 months after the battle at Kepler Station, the galaxy had changed forever. The footage of 4 human children disabling a hegemony battlecruiser had spread across every communication network in civilized space. Within days, similar reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human children displaying impossible abilities, enhanced humans organizing resistance cells, entire hegemony garrison forces disappearing overnight. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Forerunner facility they had discovered hidden in the Veil Nebula, watching as ships from dozens of species arrived, seeking alliance with the growing human resistance. The ancient station was massive, its technology still functional after 10 millennia, filled with archives that revealed the true scope of the Forerunner's final plan. The Devourer War never ended, Dr. Vasquez explained to the assembled alien representatives. The Forerunners didn't disappear, they uploaded their consciousness into a quantum storage matrix and waited for their created species to mature enough to inherit their knowledge. David Chen listened from his position, near the conference table, still struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what his diplomatic contacts had uncovered. The Galactic Council leadership had known the truth for centuries, suppressing evidence of humanity's true nature while allowing the hegemony to grow strong enough to dominate lesser species. The hegemony isn't just oppressing us, Colonel Mitchell continued the briefing. They're serving something else, something that feeds on the destruction of civilizations. The same force that drove the Forerunners to desperation 10,000 years ago. On the main display, astronomical data showed a pattern of galactic destruction stretching back millions of years. Entire sectors going dark, civilizations vanishing without trace, cosmic phenomena that couldn't be explained by natural causes. The Devourers are returning, Sarah Kim said, her 16-year-old voice carrying the weight of ancient memories. And the hegemony has been preparing the galaxy for harvest, weakening defensive capabilities, eliminating species with the potential to resist. Marcus felt the genetic memories shifting in his consciousness, older personalities emerging as the situation demanded their expertise. The 8-year-old boy who had kicked an alien bully 6 months ago was still there, but now he shared headspace with military strategists who had fought cosmic wars, scientists who understood threats beyond normal comprehension. "How long do we have?" asked Captain Veltara, representing the growing coalition of free species. "According to the Forerunner archives, the Devourers follow a predictable cycle," Marcus replied, his child's voice carrying knowledge that predated recorded history. "They return every 50,000 years to consume whatever civilization has developed in their absence. Based on the signs, we have perhaps 2 years before they arrive in force." The assembled representatives stirred uneasily. 2 years to prepare for a threat that had consumed entire galactic civilizations seemed impossible. "But we have advantages the previous civilizations didn't," Chen Wei added. She had survived her distraction mission aboard the battlecruiser, though she bore scars that would never fully heal. "We have Forerunner technology, we have enhanced humans awakening across the galaxy, and we have species willing to unite against a common enemy." Thysera, now serving as an official representative of the Centauri trade networks, raised a crystalline hand. "What of the hegemony? They control most of the galaxy's military resources. The hegemony leadership believes they're serving the natural order," Marcus explained, accessing memories of interrogations and captured intelligence. "They think cooperation with the Devourers will ensure their species' survival. They don't understand that there is no survival, only consumption." David watched his son with mixed pride and sorrow. Marcus had saved the galaxy from gradual enslavement, but the cost had been his childhood. The boy who still collected model starships and enjoyed adventure stories now carried the responsibility of preparing for cosmic war. "What's our next move?" David asked. "We wake up more enhanced humans," Sarah replied. "Every colony, every settlement, every family that carries the genetic modifications. The Forerunners designed us to be their ultimate soldiers, but that design requires activation through extreme stress or proper training. And we continue striking hegemony installations," Colonel Mitchell added. "Every weapons depot we capture, every ship we disable, every garrison we eliminate weakens their ability to suppress resistance movements." Marcus moved to the tactical display, his small hands manipulating controls that had been built for species that no longer existed. The data he called up showed human populations throughout the galaxy. highlighted by genetic markers that indicated enhancement potential. 3,700,000 possible candidates, he said with clinical precision. If we can activate even 10% of them, we'll have an army of enhanced humans unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen, Chen Wei finished. Over the following months, the transformation accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. Human children across the galaxy began manifesting abilities as word of the resistance spread, and families deliberately triggered enhancement protocols discovered in the Forerunner archives. Each new enhanced human brought genetic memories from different aspects of the vanished civilization. Engineers, scientists, artists, philosophers, and warriors. But they also brought something else. Hope. The hegemony's systematic oppression had created the exact conditions necessary for humanity's awakening. Every act of cruelty, every destroyed colony, every murdered family had triggered more enhanced humans and turned neutral species toward active resistance. On the first anniversary of Marcus's confrontation with Enforcer Zektar, hegemony control had collapsed across 17 sectors. Independent worlds were declaring sovereignty. Trade routes were shifting away from council oversight, and enhanced humans were leading liberation movements on dozens of occupied planets. Marcus stood again on the observation deck, but now he wasn't alone. Hundreds of enhanced humans had gathered at the Forerunner facility, ranging in age from 6 to 60, all carrying fragments of an ancient civilization's knowledge and determination. David joined his son, still amazed by the transformation. Do you ever regret what happened? What you've become? Marcus considered the question seriously. At 9 years old, he was already one of the most influential military commanders in the galaxy. But David could still see traces of the child who had once collected toy spaceships. I miss being normal sometimes, Marcus admitted. But when I see families living free because we fought for them, when I watch species working together instead of being crushed under hegemony rule, no, I don't regret it. He pointed to the tactical displays showing liberated worlds throughout the galaxy. Besides, we're not done yet. The real war is coming. In the depths of space beyond the galactic rim, ancient sensors detected the approaching darkness. The Devourers were stirring, drawn by the familiar patterns of civilization reaching technological maturity. But this time, they would face something unprecedented, a species designed specifically to fight them, awakened and angry and absolutely unwilling to surrender. The Forerunner's final gamble was about to pay off, and Marcus Chen, the 8-year-old boy who had kicked an alien soldier for hurting someone weaker, was ready to remind the galaxy what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be civilized. The universe was about to discover why humanity's unofficial motto had always been simple. Hold my beer and watch this. Some wars were worth fighting, and some species were worth saving, even if it meant becoming monsters to protect the innocent.